Ghost of Tsushima is a game that I love dearly. Like my obsession with dinosaurs when I was 6 years old, my obsession with Egyptian mythology when I was 8 years old, and my obsession with Greek mythology when I was 10 years old. Japanese mythology and culture is a large part of the media that I consume today. So when Ghost of Tsushima was first announced, I was immediately sold. It's the samurai-inspired open world game that I'd been yearning to play for years. And when you add in its incredible story, you treat it to an incredible cinematic and gaming experience. This is why it's become one of my favorite modern titles. So when the missus asked me, are there any games that combine all four narrative styles? I was already prepared. I'm that nomad Chad, and these are the four narratives of Ghost of Tsushima. If this is the first video of mine that you've seen, there are four core video game narratives defined by Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman in the Rules of Play Game Design Fundamentals. The four narratives being the embedded, the emergent, the evocative, and the enacted narrative. Embedded narratives are predetermined stories whose direction the player follows. These are often cinematic, but usually the player action will not affect the overall narrative. Emergent narratives are stories that are influenced by player actions and decisions within the world. These games may have several different endings as a result of your actions. Evocative narratives focus on connotations and tapping into the knowledge of a player. This focus emphasizes the idea of show, don't tell, allowing developers to evoke emotions within the player. Enacted narratives rely on the player developing the characters, leveling up and obtaining items to complete the overall narratives. These are focused on building power characters to enact change within the world. So how does Ghost of Tsushima use four narrative styles? Let's start at the beginning. The narrative which drives this masterpiece.
Nephew to the great Lord Shimura.
Ghost of Tsushima is the fictional retelling of the real Mongol invasion of the island. The story centers on Jin Sakai, a samurai nephew of Lord Shimura, the lord of the island. The game opens with the samurai attempting to repel the invaders, led by Khoten Khan. But it ends in disaster. Lord Shimura is taken captive, Jin is left for dead, and many of the samurai are slaughtered. Jin, however, is saved by Yuna, a thief informing him of the Mongol success. Jin does the samurai thing and storms Khoten's keep, only to be defeated again. And this is just the opening. Jin quickly realizes that traditional samurai tactics are not enough to repel the invasion, and has to rely on more dubious means as the ghost. Slowly garners the support of the people of the island while instilling fear in the hearts of the Mongols. The story truly plays out as Jin learns what he needs to do to save the island, despite Khoten's best efforts to crush his spirit. Two of the best being the betrayal of Ryuzo, his best friend, and the brutal execution of Taka, an acquaintance turned confidant. However, these only steal Jin's resolves to kill Khoten and drive the Mongols out. His descent into ghosthood, is that a word? Comes at the cost of his uncle rejecting him and his ways. So while Jin ultimately succeeds in the defeat of the Mongols, he and his uncle ultimately part ways, one way or another. And that's the main storyline in a nutshell. It's a captivating narrative which drives you as the player to succeed. Khoten's brutality is there to motivate you to save Tsushima Island, while the ever-growing tension between Jin and Lord Shimura serves the player to prove that Jin's method is the only way to overcome the Mongols. It's a truly cinematic experience that makes you feel a crucial part of Tsushima's survival. But there is another important aspect of the game's embedded narrative that we must consider: how it informs the emergent, the evocative, and enacted narratives. Luckily, I'm gonna break this down into 3 core themes of the story: identity, home, and growth. The emergent focusing on Jin's identity and struggle through the story, the evocative focusing on Tsushima Island, the place he's fighting to protect as his home, and the enacted emphasizing Jin's growth. So let's break it down.
When we take their life, we look them in the eye.
The biggest theme in the game is Jin's identity crisis. Jin quickly learns that Bushido, the way of the samurai, is not enough to defeat the enemy. He needs to adopt more dubious tactics to defeat them. So you might ask, where is the emergent narrative? While I think it ties into the game's enacted narrative, the game never explicitly tells you how to play. You can choose to walk the way of the samurai or slip into the shadows as the ghost. There may be no impact on the central narrative. NPCs will react to you differently based on which playstyle is used. Friendly NPCs will be warm to the samurai and more fearful of the ghost. Similarly, enemies are more likely to be terrified by the appearance of the ghost. Also, the weather gets really funky when you're the ghost. Okay, so how does this change the overall narrative? There is one narrative choice you are given. You see, the game doesn't end with the death of the Khan. There is a last tale that you must embark on. Jin and Lord Shimura take some time to take in past events, reminisce on what was lost, and reveals that Clan Sakai is to be disbanded, with the Shogun ordering Shimura to execute Jin. The two honor each other with a duel, with Jin emerging victorious. And this is when the game offers you one sole decision: kill Lord Shimura or spare him. And this isn't an easy choice. Throughout the narrative, we learn that Lord Shimura was more of a father to Jin, after losing his own father at a young age, even so far as to get the Shogun's approval to adopt Jin as his heir.
You are my son.
It is cruel irony that in killing him, Jin honors him, a reminder to Lord Shimura that he still has the heart of a samurai. And by sparing him, you selfishly force him to live with the humiliation of his failure. Jin throws the code of the samurai away to embrace his identity as the ghost. It's a single decision with little narrative weight, bar Shimura living or dying, yet it feels like the hardest choice you have to make. It's a stamp on who Jin has truly become throughout this journey.
Want.
You know a game is beautiful when you take a moment to take in the landscape. Tsushima Island is beautiful. It's no coincidence too. The beautiful landscape is threatened to be ravaged through the ensuing violence. It's the beauty which you need to protect. It's Jin's home. This is what you are fighting for. The game makes clever use of birds and foxes to guide you to hidden shrines or haiku spots with rewards for the player. They also force the player to pause and take in the beauty of the island. Shrines offer rewards and consumables for upgrades, but also picturesque views of the islands. Haikus offer cosmetic headbands, but more importantly give the player insight on how Jin is feeling with some beautiful cinematics of the surrounding landscape. The hot springs will boost Jin's overall health, but also offer deeper snippets into Jin's relationship with the island and the people thereof. It's a brilliant way of reminding the player of Jin's relationship with the island itself. And it also contrasts the darker moments to remind you of what could become of the island if Jin fails in his quest. There are many side quests which help to highlight the plight of the residents of the island and their suffering under the Mongols. It is one of the many ways the games make you feel invested in the world. However, they do form a mini embedded narrative in the larger scope of things. It is how we uncover these stories, a trail of blood or caravan of prisoners serve to emphasize the corruption and suffering that Jin needs to save his home from. This is ultimately a reflection of the darkness that threatens to consume the island.
He's gone mad!
This blade.
Like any good action RPG, Ghost of Tsushima has its own skill tree with abilities for Jin to learn. It is important to remember, however, that this is not as extensive as other more traditional RPGs. What do I mean by this? All of the abilities either complement the Ghost or the Samurai playstyle, and which abilities prioritizes. Player, again I say prioritize because you technically could learn everything with relative ease. There are also various armor sets which provide buffs and in-game benefits for different playstyles. Jin starts off with a broken armor, a visual representation of where he is after his early defeats to the Khan. He's not only a broken man, but his moral code is broken. You can then pursue other armor sets and upgrade them, not only boosting the benefits, but improving on their visual design too. The design improvements make Jin appear more fearsome and imposing, and reflects your growth throughout the game. There are also a host of other cosmetic items to help you customize your appearance. Now you as the player can craft the perfect image of Jin. It's a wonderful way of narrating the skill and most importantly the growth that you acquire to conquer the Mongol hordes. Beginning as a broken samurai and evolving into the terrifying ghost, or becoming a fearsome samurai throughout this journey. Ghost of Tsushima is a great story of growth through the fierce inward and outward struggle faced by Jin. The embedded narrative sets the stage, which motivates and invests you in the characters and the challenges that they face. The evocative narrative allows you to experience the beauty and the people of the island, and why you have to save Tsushima. The enacted allows you to pick up and hone the necessary skills to tackle Khotan and the Mongol invasion. And finally, the enacted narrative allows you to decide who Jin has become,
Under me,
his new
the
identity,
warrior's death.
thus creating a near-perfect narrative. Needless to say, I just love Ghost of Tsushima. As always, I am that lost soul. I am that wandering wanderer. I am that nomad shad. If you want a more in-depth look at the embedded narrative, then you might want to check this out over here. Where are you? Where is it? I have no idea.